Hi there, Chris Harper here from hidegun.tech. In today's video, I'm going to demo a great way to create special effects within Power Apps and apply it to text and buttons so they really stand out. So let's see a preview of what we'll be creating. So here's the button we're going to build. It looks like it's going to be complex, but as with most things Power Apps, it's really quite simple to do with the help of a timer and some high school maths. So let me talk you through the technique and then we'll build a button. So to understand how this will work, let's first briefly discuss colors, and to help explain, let me add a timer. And we'll look at the fill property of that timer. There we go. So using Power Apps, you'll be familiar with the RGBA colors, where R is the red parameter, G the green, B the blue. Now A stands for alpha, which defines the color's transparency. All the RGB values are between 0 and 255, and every different combination is a different color. So that means there are over 16 million colors we have to play with. However, even though there are that many colors, if we look at the RGB values for red and yellow, for example, they are remarkably similar. You can see that both the red and blue values are the same, as is the alpha parameter, which you'd expect. The only difference is the green value, so 0 for red, 255 for yellow. Now if we can find a way to dynamically change the green value from 0 to 255, then we can change the colour from red to yellow. Well, there are several ways we can do this within Power Apps. I'm going to be using a timer control to change the value of a variable, and we'll place that variable within the fill property of a button. So first of all, let's make use of the timer control we've just added, and we'll set the duration property to 1000, which is a second. We're going to set the repeats property to true, and we're going to make use of the on timer end property to define a Boolean variable, which we will call bool green. And what we're going to do is change the value of bool green to its opposite at the end of every cycle. So initially the default value of bool green is false. At the end of the first cycle, so at the end of the first second, the not operator, which is the exclamation mark, flips the value to its opposite. So at the end of the first second, the value of bool green changes to true. At the end of the second second, the reverse happens and it changes to false, and then back to true at the end of the third second, and so on. And it works that way continuously. Now we're going to introduce a button. We can actually use any control that has a fill value, but here we'll use a button. We're going to look at the fill property and we're going to change that. So we are going to make the red value 255. For the green value, I'm going to introduce an if statement. So I'm going to say if bool green is true, then the value is 0. If it's false, the value of the green element is 255. The blue element we're going to make 0, and the alpha element will leave as 1. And straight away you can see, because the default of bool green is false, the value is 255, and straight away yellow shows on screen. But let's run the app and see what happens. We'll start the timer. And here you can see the effect of the green element of the fill colour flipping between 0 and 255 each second, which changes the overall colour of the button from yellow to red. Now, you probably wouldn't use a colour change as dramatic as this in your production apps, but you could definitely make use of a more subtle change, for example, to show the completeness of a form. Now we can exert even greater control on the colour than simply using a Boolean true-false variable by applying some maths. So first, let's insert another timer control. And we'll set the value of this, or the duration property value of this, to 50, which is a 20th of a second. We'll set the repeat property to true. And we will also use the on timer end, and we're going to insert a couple of variables. So the first one here is a counter. So that simply increments by 1 every time the timer completes its cycle. So every 20th of a second, the value of var counter increases by 1. The second variable is var green, and that's set to this fairly complex looking formula here that I'll explain exactly how that works in a minute. But what I'm going to do is to copy that button. And I'm going to go to the fill property. I'm going to change it so that the green parameter is now represented by var green, and I'll remove the if statements. Straight away you can see the colours turn black, because unlike a Boolean variable, there is no default for a standard numerical variable. But when we run the app and start the timer, you can see the impact of the var green parameter gradually transitioning between 0 and 255, and that changes the overall colour of the button from yellow to red back to yellow as the timer increments the value of the variable var counter. Now let me explain in a bit more detail how that formula works with the help of Excel. So here we have a simple spreadsheet. In column A we have the value of var counter. In column B we have the value of the sine of var counter divided by 25, which gives us this nice sine curve that we've got here. Sine always returns a value between -1 and 1. And then in column C, I've got the formula that you saw me use in Power Apps, and this produces exactly the same graph as the previous column, but you can see the value varies between 0 and 255, which is exactly what I want to be able to change the colour from yellow to red and back again. So let me explain how this works. So first of all, I multiply the value of sine var counter over 25 by 255. So that changes the value here from being -1 to +1 to -255 to +255. I then add 255, so the value oscillates between 0 and 510, and then finally I divide it by 2, so it oscillates between 0 and 255, and I use the round function to just return whole numbers. And it looks a complex formula, but it actually works in quite a simple way. And you can actually use Excel to test formulas like this and then cut and paste them into Power Apps. You just need to be aware that you have to obviously replace the cell value with the variable that you're going to be using within Power Apps itself. So here we are back in Power Apps. We're nearly done, but let's just do one final twist. So as a flourish, let's change the text in the button. I'm going to change that to click me. Let's change the size from, let's make it 300 square. Ignore the padding. We're going to change the border color to black. Border radius, let's make that 150, which should give us a perfect circle. Lovely. Okay, change the font to Courier New. We're going to change the font size to 48, make it nice and big. Oops, that's not right, is it? There we go. Now, if I look at the fill color for the button, we have the var green variable that we introduced earlier on. I'm going to copy that and go to the color property of the button, which defines the color of the text. And I'm going to paste that in. Now that would give the text exactly the same color as the button, but I'm going to add in 255. I'm going to subtract the value of var green from 255. So let me run that. But first of all, I will finally correct the wording on the button. There we go. So let's run the app, manually start the timer. And you can see there that when the button fill is red, the text is yellow, and vice versa, and then the two meet in the middle, so the text becomes invisible, because actually at the middle point between 0 and 255, both the text and the fill color have the identical color. So there we go, we've produced our button. Couple of points to make. Obviously, if you wanted the button animation to run automatically when the page is loaded, you'd need to set a Boolean variable to be true via the onVisible property of the screen, and use this variable to start the timer via the timer's start property. The timer stops automatically if you navigate away from the page, and on returning the timer starts again. Now clearly with this there's quite a bit of scope to flex the result, flex the output through changing the color options, changing the timer duration, even using multiple variables. So other math formulas could be used as well to give a very different emphasis. So I hope you get the opportunity to use this technique and play around with it and maybe introduce it in your own apps. So that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Please leave any comments below and I'll get back to you. I'll be posting more videos soon, so if you found this useful, please like and subscribe. And there's more Power Up stuff on my website, hiredgun.tech. So until the next time, fare thee well.